I've been an avid anime watcher for the better of 13 years now, and I was never quite sure if I'd ever really be able to get into vampire-based series. Hellsing didn't really appeal to me, and I never really had an interest in trying to watch Trinity Blood either. And I never cared for anything vampire-oriented before anyway, so why would I now? But in the later half of 2017, that was going to change. Before I started working there, a local pawn shop I used to frequent got about half a bookshelf of anime that was out of print, and for me, it was like a candy store. This was the biggest collector's jackpot I had ever seen at that point. I picked up Now and Then here and there, Ping Pong Club, a lot of classic OVAs like Gunsmith Cats, and also the series I'll be covering in today's episode, Nightwalker, Midnight Detective. Mayonaka no Tansai Nightwalker, and was developed by a production studio named AIC and aired in 1998, spanning 12 episodes from July till September. AIC at this time was known for very enjoyable anime, such as TV series Black Heaven, Blue Gender, OVAs like Oh My Goddess, El Hazard, Vampire Princess Miyu, and of course, Tenchi Muyo, Ryo Oki. Both the game and the movie combine elements of mystery, thriller, horror, anthology to deliver this story. Fans of the Twilight Zone or Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark will feel right at home. In the universe of Nightwalker exists a light world and a dark world. The perspective of the series takes place in the light world, which you can just call the regular Earth, like regular society, and the dark world is a realm left to the imagination of the viewer. Our main protagonist, Shido, is a vampire strictly taking on the duty of protecting humans from the night world monsters that we know as New Breed. Not much is known about Shido's past, but the odd thing about Shido is that he was once a human himself, hundreds of years back. Throughout the series, he was constantly haunted by the memory of the moment he first became a vampire and the memory of the man who turned him into the bloodthirsty being, who we later are introduced to as Cain. Cain is a pretty spooky dude, but really has no strong effect on the plot. He just keeps popping up with these weird little remarks and stuff like that. Shido basically works as a detective alongside the NOS, which is an organization set out to control and diminish the New Breed. He works with his secretary, later turned vampire acquaintance Riho, his source of blood, and the woman that he low-key lusts after, Yaoi, and of course his little demon dragon pet thingy that sits on his shoulder named Goonie. The show takes all the elements I introduced to you before and gives us an edgy late 90s Monster of the Week project, which I must say is quite enjoyable. Each episode has its own story and without a doubt will always point the fingers back to the New Breed every single time. The mystery dynamic comes into play when you realize your own hypothesis of why a certain situation is happening is on the contrary. The thriller and horror elements lie in the violent nature of the show. Plenty of death and blood and dark things take place here. The first scene of the first episode was rather gruesome, setting the tone off the rip. I think one of the main appeals to Nightwalker is how rigid the content of each plotline is. There's some screwed up things that go on in this show. In one episode, an elderly man of wealth is set up and murdered by his 2 grandchildren and daughter-in-law in order to inherit his fortune. In another episode, a mother has to offer animal sacrifices to the demon who possessed her little son 20 years back in the past. It's pretty wild. People sell their souls and bodies to these new breeds for fame and social survival or just survival in general. As a vampire anime, I have to admit the show did a good job in fleshing out the vampire cliches without really overdoing it. The blood-sucking, sleeping in coffins, not going out in the daytime, these were all present but not done in a desperate way to enforce the vampire element that they're trying to set. There was even a slight mention of Transylvania in one episode, and I thought that was pretty cool. Nightwalker, in my opinion, has pretty fluid visuals for the time, and while not the greatest animated series, it works for the tone it's trying to set. The art design is above average by my standards, and the city the characters live in is perfectly appropriate for the events that are going on. The music in this is phenomenal, starting with the opening, which I nod my head every single time I hear it. The jingles throughout the show and the pretty decent ending as well. The dub was also a pretty high quality one, especially with this being an anime that nobody really knows or cares about. The one major problem I gotta call out with this is the fact they never really delivered as far as truly fleshing these characters out. Yeah, they had a very strong episode giving you a sad backstory on Yaoi, but seriously, who gives a flying fuck? She's not the main character. I would have loved a more in-depth episode explaining the human life of Shido up until his relationship with Cain that resulted to his transformation to a vampire and everlasting life. But in defense of why this didn't happen, Shido does mention multiple times he doesn't recall most of his human life. But still, with that to the side, I think Nightwalker is a very enjoyable series, and as someone who's seen it twice, it held my attention very well both viewings. And that says a lot, trust me. Today, the series is currently licensed by Discotech Media, which means it's available to be purchased on DVD. I own the original US manga DVDs since back when the show was out of print, but if you're a collector, that's an option for you. All in all, go watch Nightwalker. If you got a backlog of anime right now, you can save this for October the 31st. It's perfect for that. That's all for this episode. Have you seen Nightwalker? What should I review next? Let me know all that in the comment section below. I'm out. Thanks for watching Anime Back When.